Dewpoint, Michigan's award-winning IT services and solutions provider to small and medium businesses, is proud to sponsor this 30-minute webinar, Demystifying Cloud, Infrastructure as a Service and Managed Services for Non-Techies. Dewpoint, bringing business and technology together. There will be a Q&A portion at the end of this session. All voice lines have been muted. Welcome, everybody. Today's topic will be Demystifying Cloud, Infrastructure as a Service and Managed Services for Non-Techie folks. By non-techie, we're talking about folks such as risk or finance managers, even CFOs and CEOs, leaders and decision makers whose day job leans more toward running the business, but have responsibilities for overseeing IT and how IT supports the business. I'm Rob Kondoff, Senior Vice President with Dewpoint, and we're coming to you from Dewpoint's Lansing, Michigan headquarters. With me today are a couple of Dewpoint experts around the business and technical aspects of IT infrastructure and applications, especially how business applications are hosted and supported. Ed Rowe, who works with many of our clients on helping them understand how to transform and utilize their data center compute, storage, and network resources to help them better understand business and control costs. Ed just lives data center. In fact, Ed, I wonder sometimes if you've ever done a sleepover with your family in the data center, just to be surrounded by the two things you love most.
No, I haven't gotten there yet, Rob. But you've given me a vision to aspire to, and I think it'll be a tough sell to my family.
Yeah, I can imagine. Also with us today from Dewpoint is Rich Benoit, one of Dewpoint's most experienced cloud and IT strategy experts. How you doing today, Rich?
Doing great, Rob. I'm looking forward to helping demystify this stuff for our audience. I'm also trying to picture Ed and his family in that data center.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, don't go there. I wouldn't try and do that too hard. You might have nightmares. All right, so let's get into this. So guys, we picked this topic for a number of reasons. Here at Dewpoint, we're focused on helping small and mid-sized businesses by providing IT consulting, services, and solutions. In this space, many of our businesses that we work with face very similar challenges around IT infrastructure. And by infrastructure here, we're talking network, compute server, storage, the things you'd find in a true data center. There are challenges around how these infrastructure assets have been acquired over time, how they're utilized and kept up to date, what it's all costing, even where they're physically located and who's supporting them. So we're going to talk about the issues, challenges, and risks with IT infrastructure and how applications are being hosted in small and mid-sized companies, and help demystify some of the key vocabulary terms like cloud and infrastructure as a service in business, not techie terms. And then we'll discuss how you, as a non-technical leader with IT management responsibilities, can determine a more optimal model for hosting your applications, as well as how to approach migrating to that more optimized end state. So guys, let's start by spending a minute or two talking about what we see out there in a small and mid-sized business landscape, starting with one of the more common yet troublesome patterns. Businesses with applications that are spread across multiple locations, often without clear documentation of what those IT assets are, or even what applications are running on what platforms.
Well, for sure. We see all the time that small and medium businesses may not even have a true data center. So these IT infrastructure assets are literally running in closets, unused offices, places like that. It's also not uncommon to find that there's just one or two technical people in the whole company that's expected to know what it all is, how to keep it running. And when it breaks or a system goes down, it often comes down to just these one or two folks that the whole business depends on to figure out what happened, get things back up and running, and to make sure that it doesn't happen again.
Yeah, so true, Ed. It's these types of situations that have caused so many businesses to express their desire to get out of the data center business altogether. Mm-hmm. What they're really saying is they know they have a problem, that IT isn't aligned to supporting or making the business successful, and they don't really have the expertise, nor do they want to have it, because IT isn't their core. Their businesses are credit unions, healthcare clinics, and that type of thing. Their core business is not IT.
You know, that's a really key point, Rich. Folks read or hear about the cloud and IT or infrastructure as a service and all the associated benefit statements like paying only for what you use and better price performance. They know they should be evaluating and potentially taking better advantage of these new capabilities, but they don't necessarily have the expertise to know how to do it or even what some of these terms mean.
Exactly, Rob. So we see these things in small and mid-sized businesses, so therefore they do nothing. They've continued to go along, leaving IT just running the way it is, but they're missing out on the benefits and lower costs and more responsive and stable IT operations they could be getting by going to the cloud. But so they're putting their businesses at risk by not doing anything.
One of our newest Dewpoint clients had that exact situation when we first met them. They had 2 IT guys supporting a business of over 200 employees, running email applications and other stuff on old servers spread across a number of different locations. And none of them were really environmentally or physically appropriate to be running their business apps on. So we told them we could give them a hand, clean it up, put things where they need to be, like moving their email to the cloud where it does run great, and actually save them operating costs. You could see the look of relief on their face.
Oh, yeah. They knew they were at risk. They just didn't know how to move forward affordably, since most small and mid-sized businesses just can't afford to run an IT shop the way a Ford Motor Company or a General Motors does. What finally compelled this particular client to move forward was suffering a major application outage, which impacted their clients and caused them to lose some critical client data.
That's a pattern we see over and over. Not addressing IT infrastructure needs, optimizing, really until something forces them to, like suffering an outage or running out of capacity, acquisitions, those kinds of things, because their business grows and they outgrow their current infrastructure.
Yep. So having talked about issues and barriers for a few minutes here, and what we're seeing out there, what we're really advocating is getting proactive, rather than waiting for a crisis to force acting without having time then to do what's really right for your business. There are stats from analysts and government agencies such as FEMA which quantify the risk realities for businesses which are experiencing major IT outages. And with digital business increasingly dependent upon IT just to survive, let alone thrive, the risk of just doing nothing to address these issues continues to increase. All right, so let's spend a few minutes honing in then on one of those barriers to proactively addressing IT infrastructure issues, and that is buzzwords and terminology. So for non-techie leaders and managers who are caught in this situation, they certainly need a fundamental understanding of these latest options for addressing the IT challenges, such as the cloud and infrastructure service, and even what managed IT services means. But they need that understanding at a business, a financial, and even a risk level, not as a technoid.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Rob, but before we start tossing out terms, it's important to say that what it all boils down to is where a business application is running. In the IT world, as you've already mentioned, we refer to this as application hosting. It boils down to where and on what platform the app's being hosted. For many small and medium businesses, the answer is on servers, which are located at one or more of their sites, laying around or what have you. These are commonly referred to as on-prem or on-premise hosted or just premise hosted. If the business has an actual data center and the servers are located in that data center, it's still considered on-prem.
Yeah, that's right, Ed. Because the on-premise hosting model is so prevalent and has been the norm for years in the small and medium business market, this is also commonly referred to as traditional. Many of the issues we've been talking about as risks, such as aging technology, capacity limitations, or even underutilization, and also the sprawl of the such components across multiple locations. Most of these are related to traditional application hosting model and the fact that it hasn't fundamentally changed in many years.
Yeah, one of the first improvements of traditional hosting was trying to address the sprawl of servers and storage by centralizing everything into one or two data center locations. So instead of the applications being hosted and served locally to users from their offices, they were being served up centrally and the users were remote. So this led to the term remote hosting coming into play, sometimes also called off-premise application hosting. And it means that the application servers are not in the same office as the users. Off-premise traditional hosting almost always is in a purpose-built data center, and it addresses some of the issues we talked about, such as providing better stability and applications uptime, thanks to a more controlled, reliable environment for servers and storage. Centralizing also makes it faster and easier and cheaper to service and secure machines and back them up and restore them versus having to deal with geographically dispersed IT assets. The remote data center may be owned by you or yours exclusively, or a third party such as Dewpoint's data center pictured here, which supports multiple companies to host their applications from one location. But the point is, it's still your applications running in someone else's data center. You typically get cost savings by using a third-party data center since it's being leveraged across multiple companies.
That's right, Rob. So having talked about the two main types of traditional application hosting, on-premises or remote or off-premises, let's talk about the latest and greatest, the cloud.
All right, let's talk cloud.
About time. Go, Rich. Go, man. Go.
All right, guys, settle down. There are several cloud-related terms we should cover here. For the non-techies, the first thing I'll say about defining the cloud, what cloud application hosting boils down to, is that it's like remote hosting, except where the actual server is located matters less. Unlike traditional remote hosting, with cloud, you typically don't own the server or the data storage. Those IT assets are owned by the cloud provider. It's a consumption-based OpEx financial model where you only pay for what you use. You can scale up or scale down your capacity, and you can provision that capacity much faster than the time it takes you to go buy and install your own physical server and storage. Also with the cloud, you enable mobility, as cloud-architected applications and data can be easily accessed from anywhere and on a wide variety of devices, such as smartphones and tablets.
I know we're trying to keep this non-technical, but some applications are very data and network bandwidth intensive. They won't perform well in the cloud. Other considerations such as data privacy, regulatory compliance requirements, security is a huge consideration, can be constraints around how much you leverage public clouds like AWS, Azure, Google. These constraints are one of the reasons why some hosting providers offer private cloud options, like Dewpoint does. Private cloud offers many of the cloud advantages Rich just mentioned, but they can be restricted for use by just one business and made more secure than public clouds can be.
Yeah, great points, Ed and Rich. And if anybody's wondering about the SaaS or SaaS acronym shown here, it stands for Software as a Service, and that's essentially the same type of cloud-hosted model, but for a third-party provided application such as Salesforce or Office 365 for Microsoft, with a subscription-based OpEx licensing model. The application and cloud hosting for SaaS is bundled and offered as a service by the application vendor. A lot of businesses have been replacing older, typically homegrown applications like back office systems such as custom payroll with such packaged products offered as software as a service. The total cost of ownership between maintaining an aging in-house custom system versus moving to a state-of-the-art packaged application solution can more than justify the decision.
Yeah, that's right, Rob. We should also mention, too, that there are other things the cloud option can provide, such as high availability for applications that can't go down, as part of either a disaster recovery plan or just making your application more resilient. Many businesses like healthcare providers or financial services have critical business applications and data that just must stay up. It can be cost prohibitive to have all such applications standing by just in case at a second site. But utilizing the cloud as a disaster recovery second site that can scale up or down as needed can really change the game.
Yeah, that leads me to jump in here, guys, and mention another term that's used to tie together the application hosting models we've been talking about, the term hybrid hosting. So simply put, hybrid hosting refers to businesses who have a mix of traditional and cloud application hosting models and are managing their application workloads across this spectrum. The idea behind hybrid hosting is you need both cloud and traditional, and putting each application on its best suited hosting model. Hybrid hosting is actually considered state-of-the-art these days because it affords businesses a dynamic and flexible spectrum of hosting model options which can easily keep up with the ever-changing business and application demands. A hybrid application hosting model also addresses the reality of one size typically won't fit all the applications that you have. So from a financial perspective, hybrid models can be wrapped into an overall OpEx financial model where you don't have to buy or own any of the IT infrastructure, compute, or storage assets. You merely pay for what you use, which many companies are taking more and more advantage of to save costs. This is what the term Infrastructure as a Service, or IaaS, is all about. Getting access to a spectrum of IT infrastructure as a service from someone else owning someone else's data center facility underneath it all. Just like you consume other services on an as-needed basis or on demand, such as electricity or water, IaaS allows businesses to focus more on their core business and less on being an IT shop. And this leads us to demystify the last of the vocabulary terms that are important to get on the table here within the IT hosting realm. For those businesses that not only want to get out of the data center business and exploit the benefits of cloud and computing, but also don't want to staff their own IT resources and would prefer to have a partner who is expert in IT, we now get into the managed services realm. Managed services enable you to hold a service provider such as Dewpoint accountable to not only provide you IT services and support, but also manage it all for you and be accountable with service-level contractual commitments to be your company's IT provider. One of the big benefits of managed services model is you don't have to find, hire, retain, and worry about IT staffing when someone quits or retires or leaves the business, especially in a market like this where labor and talent is very tight. So in a way, you can think about these terms that we just covered as a bit of a continuum. Which of these IT infrastructure and application hosting models is best for you? Well, Rich and Ed, let's touch on how to get started answering that exam question.
Yeah, the first thing we cannot stress enough is you can't look at it from just a technical perspective. It's not just about deciding that we want to go to the cloud and choosing AWS because it's technically solid, and then pushing all your applications to AWS. Getting to the right answer about what application hosting strategy will best support your business has to start with the business strategy itself. So is the business strategy steady as she goes, or is the strategy to grow organically versus expanding to new geographies? Or is it by acquisition? Mm-hmm. Examining the business strategy and associated IT infrastructure implications is the first step. Next, we need to look at your existing IT infrastructure model from a people, process, and technology perspective.
Amen.
Yeah. So are the business and IT processes aligned so that IT is enabling the business strategy? Same goes for the IT technology and the IT staff and skills. Areas which you're not aligned to support the business strategy will start to jump out at you. So this is where you start to evaluate the various application hosting options, such as cloud with IaaS, all the way up through fully managed services, service model option. Assessing which of these models best address the issues you've identified that optimally support that business strategy.
Yeah. And guys, this is where most small and medium businesses need a little expert help. I'd say that it's going to be rare to find that the spectrum of apps to be hosted all fall into just either traditional or 100% cloud. In most cases, we're seeing a hybrid hosting model might be the right answer. The exact mix within that hybrid model being unique to each business. And if a cloud is in fact part of that mix, due diligence around determining which cloud service, such as AWS versus Azure versus private cloud, or a mix of these even, is what a little expert help is for. Even if it's just a sanity check your conclusions, it's a good thing. This is a role we here at Dewpoint often serve for our clients, especially around understanding the right levels of application and data security that's needed.
Yeah, and we're also these days using some pretty snazzy tools which have emerged in the market to help us with that and help our clients to automate and expedite this type of analysis. One of those tools, for example, comes from a company called BMC. This tool can quickly be installed on your network to quietly watch and capture all the network traffic between your applications, your databases, and your users. After just a few days of letting this tool run, it captures enough data to spit out reports and maps showing traffic and bandwidth loads, dependencies between apps and databases. Mm-hmm. It can also show when peak periods occur. All this information helps inform our analysis and the decision-making around what application hosting models will work best for your business, and where there might be bottlenecks or even excess capacity that you're paying for, but you really aren't using or don't need.
It's true. We also have another tool called Turbonomic that we use that builds on that data and helps us understand the various application hosting models. It can project costs, giving you both an operational and an economic framework to work within. What's even cooler is Turbonomic can be set up to make the decision about what apps need to run where, and it does that on the fly based on real-time considerations such as network bandwidth bottlenecks, knowing what IT resources are most cost-effective, and still meet the required performance and response time expectations. So it does all that real-time.
Yeah, it really helps it along. Keeps the cost down, too, for doing the assessments.
Yep.
All right, so I know, guys, this is starting to sound a little complex, but honestly, this really is a straightforward process we're describing where you might just need a little help from a partner like Dewpoint to get through it. But it's doable, it's affordable, and the payback and the risk reduction which comes from optimizing your IT infrastructure is well worth it. Don't be fooled by some of what you might read out there which make it sound like you can just migrate all your applications to the cloud and have a complete optimal hosting solution in the cloud. Reality is different, and there are a lot of pieces and parts to the puzzle which need to be put together in the right way for your unique business. The key takeaway for our audience here is that there is a pretty straightforward, structured approach you can start with to look at your current IT infrastructure and the applications hosting models. It's business and applications driven. It is not technology driven. Yep. And we'll pretty rapidly tease out what a more optimal model would look like, including the financials and the relative savings to help justify any such transformation.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right, Rob. But there's one more key topic we need to talk about: how you get from where you are to that new, more optimal end state once you defined and what that destination should be. So there are several successful approaches we use to reach the promised land. And yes, this is one of those it depends things regarding which one is right for you and your business.
And everything.
Yeah. So the common ingredient underneath all of this is considering each application in your portfolio of applications.
Yeah, depending on the size of your business and how long you've been operating, we typically find in the larger mid-sized companies that there are dozens,
True.
sometimes even hundreds of existing applications being used across functions like HR, customer support, billing, sales, finance, etc. But even in the smaller businesses, you'd be surprised once you actually inventory all the unique applications at how many there are across even just a couple of hundred employees in a company. Before making any decisions about hosting models, it's a best practice to look at what applications can be consolidated or even retired if nobody else is still using them.
Right, that's right. So we recommend to start with an application rationalization. Figure out how to best host the applications which still need to be supported. For some applications which are no longer needed, putting together a plan to retire them may be the best approach. For other applications that are spread across multiple servers, consolidating them would be a preferred approach. We typically find a small percentage of applications fall into these two categories, so it's worth doing the analysis to figure out what cost savings and productivity gains can result.
I just want to jump in here and say that we talk to so many folks who initially tell us they want to, quote, move everything to the cloud, besides the point we just made earlier, and not everything is suited to be run in the cloud. It doesn't make business or financial sense to move applications which are nearing like end of life to the cloud because they have marching orders to move everything to the cloud.
Yeah, one size again does not fit all. So guys, let's get into positioning the options for how applications which are needed to go forward actually do move from their current mode to the new and improved end state. And let's assume, just for an example here, that the end state is the most common one we've talked about, a hybrid traditional plus cloud hosting model.
So if we're saying that for a particular business, we've gone through the steps we've been talking about, and have determined that a hybrid hosting model is right for them, that's cool. But let's say that hybrid hosting model consists of a mix of some traditional and public cloud. That, in fact, is the best option for many small and medium-sized businesses. Then we have basically a half dozen approaches for migrating those folks from where they are today to a hybrid hosting infrastructure model.
Exactly, Ed. For the remaining applications that must continue to be provided to the users, there are essentially four major buckets for them to migrate so that they can take advantage of that optimal hybrid IT hosting model. For example, some applications that use modern technologies like Java or Microsoft.NET may require no change at all and be able to run in the hybrid hosting model as is. The next common bucket of applications are those which need to be upgraded and perhaps put on a more modern platform. Example of these would be applications like legacy business-specific applications that are running software that is several releases behind or on old unsupported hardware. These applications are core to the business today, so the no change option results in increasing risk to the business and disruption, and probably cause increased costs to support them to keep them going. Applications which profile like this bucket, we would aim to upgrade or put them on a new server platform or both.
And this leads us to the third type of application bucket, those applications which perform a function that is still needed by users in the business, but are so old or fragile that they need to be re-architected or replaced entirely before they could ever be moved. A good example of this might be an accounting system which might have been homegrown or purchased many years ago by a vendor that's no longer around. Like the previous bucket, not addressing applications in this situation means risks are increasing and costs for the business as well. Applications like this are just too frail of being moved as is.
That's right, Rob. So the fourth bucket to consider here is actually what we talked about before, the software as a service, there's SaaS. As we discussed earlier, SaaS is a subscription licensing model where the application is hosted in a cloud by a third party, typically the application vendor. So examples of SaaS applications include Salesforce, Workday for HR, and even Microsoft Office 365. So if you're running an older version of Microsoft Office, the option of moving to Office 365 hosted by Microsoft would be an example of migrating to a SaaS model.
All right, so we've talked through a half dozen approaches to prepare your applications to migrate into a hybrid application model. The last step then is to determine how to execute those migrations. And broadly speaking, we're going to say there's just two main types of migration. The easiest is just to keep the application largely in place. In other words, there really isn't a migration. Apps which are either already running in the cloud or fell into the no change bucket, as well as apps which are already running in a traditional hosting model but already centralized in a good data center, they just don't need to be moved. We would only do that if there was some economic or other benefit to doing so.
Yeah, it's generally good practice to try and keep as much in place as you can, provided it's not putting the business at risk or if it's not cost effective to leave it that way. But for quite a few small to medium businesses we work with, particularly those at the smaller end of the spectrum, we find those situations we talked about where there are apps running in various locations on different servers, many of which are outdated or just underutilized. Those are the applications we need to migrate to the new hybrid hosting infrastructure. We'll lift those applications up off what they're running on today, shift them into the hybrid hosting infrastructure, either put them into the cloud or on a centralized platform based on what was previously determined. So we'll go down the list to pick, what bucket these guys go into. Some existing applications may shift to a software service model, as shown here and mentioned earlier.
Yeah, and this picture, I think, really illustrates what we're talking about, how we migrate existing applications to a new, improved hosting destination, such as Howd and traditional centralized in a hybrid model. But it all starts with taking that applications-driven approach that we've been harping on, looking to classify each application into buckets and prepare those which need to be re-platformed or re-architected before migrating to the new end state. Here comes the actual migration, which broadly speaking is two broad approaches: keep it in place, or lift and shift it. The remainder of the others being retired and consolidated and shifted into the hybrid model. All right, so let's summarize here, and we'll leave some time for Q&A. So we're going to start to summarize by really looking at any of you who have some questions out there. Please, in your chat box, go ahead and type your question into the chat box here. We'll use the chat feature here in order to be able to field some questions. So guys, we started the conversation about demystifying the cloud, IaaS, and managed services by describing the issues and risks around infrastructure and apps hosting that we here at Dewpoint are seeing out there in the market.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, so many of these businesses continue to operate as they have for years, despite how dependent today's businesses become on IT, data, and business applications in general. Despite how much better IT infrastructure models the industry now offers, they depend on one or two key individuals to keep all the applications going and to put up with downtime and performance issues. They're actually spending more than they think in overall IT and productivity costs. The longer these issues and challenges go unaddressed, the greater the risk profile of the business.
Right, and the barriers to addressing these issues and challenges are more perceived than real. One such barrier is the belief that they're controlling costs and doing any IT improvements will actually cost them more. As you mentioned, Ed, the truth is most businesses are spending more than they should by not modernizing their IT infrastructure and taking advantage and benefits of the cloud, such as IaaS or IT managed services. Since responsible for IT usually falls to IT or non-IT trained executive roles such as CFO in a mid-size or smaller companies, perceptions of not having adequate in-house IT skills and knowledge is another common barrier to making such improvements.
It is.
Yep. So our session today was really geared toward pointing out that to all the non-technical business leaders who have IT responsibilities that you really can move forward and overcome these barriers. You can reduce IT and business risks and costs and get the benefits of doing so. We advocated starting with the business strategy, then an applications-driven approach which holistically looks at not just technology, but your processes and also your people dimensions. And we took the discussion through to explain, once you've defined that better IT end state, these types of application and migration approaches which will get you there. We also aim to demystify and debunk some of the hype that is out there, such as the claims that you can move all your applications to the cloud. Yep. Don't be fooled by the one-size-fits-all stuff. We here at Dewpoint want to help you move forward, so we are going to offer you a quick cloud check questionnaire, which you can download to gauge your cloud readiness. And we're also going to offer a no-cost Dewpoint rapid assessment and consultation for listening to our session today. Stay tuned for details about these two items at the conclusion of the session in just a minute. But first, let's move to our Q&A portion, and I see that we do have a couple of questions in here. So the questions that was asked was, can someone buy the tools that you mentioned themselves and do this for themselves? Guys, I think, the answer is probably yes, but is that the best approach?
Right, so the BMC tool, as an example, requires quite a bit of knowledge. There's a mapping activity that has to go on in the background, a setup of queuing, and it's fairly complicated. I mean, the output is really easy to understand for the layman and for folks who are non-technical, but the actual machinery of getting the tools operational is sometimes daunting and, better left to professionals.
Right. Well, and the other key thing there is that although you might have a solution to a particular problem, you might not have the best solution. So one of the things that we can bring to bear is our expertise on all the different varieties of ways of doing this.
Fantastic. Well, with that, we do have a couple more questions, but we're going to respond to those via the emails and registrations we received, just for sake of time, get you folks out of here at the 30-minute mark like we promised. So wanted to thank you again. As we move forward here, there's a call to action here in this slide. Thank you for joining us today. On your screen and also now in our chat window is a URL where you can take advantage of our offer of a no-charge rapid consultation, as well as the ability to download a self-paced quick check to be able to gauge your own organization's potential and readiness to leverage the benefits of the cloud. At this URL, you'll also find a replay of this entire webinar available through February, so if you wish to repeat it or forward it to a colleague of yours to watch the session. We'll also follow up by email and provide you all this link and information. So on behalf of Rich and Ed, we hope you got value from our session today. We thank you for your time and hope to hear from you soon.
Cheers.